Dark Knight's Death Metal, the last stories of the DC Universe, issue 1. A bunch of stories in here, a bunch of creators. We'll mention them as we go through. So this is very much set right where we are in Death Metal, which is we're about to head into the final battle, which is the last couple issues of Death Metal. We're getting one this month, yes, and one in January, which wraps things up. So, and there's a big focus on the Titans here as well as other characters. The first story is also the last story. It's like a wraparound called Together, which is by Joshua Williamson, James Tynion IV, and Scott Snyder, with Travis Moore on art. So we'll kind of mention the first half of this now, and we'll sort of go through in order and come back to it when we wrap up. But it focuses mainly on Donna, and she's on the island formerly known as Themyscira, and she's interacting with Beast Boy and talking about their worries and about the doom of, like, this could be the last night on Earth. But there's kind of a feel-good moment when she realizes that all the Titans of different generations, not every single member, because some are dead, and so on, but even the weird new team that Damien's got, which they do kind of crack a joke about them counting as Titans. It's like, everyone counts, don't be mean. It's like,
I mean, but if they're also counting Ray Palmer and Kyle Rayner,
from Titans, yeah, sure. I mean, I appreciated that because I did enjoy that Titans book, and I like Kyle being there. So
yeah,
well,
he was even on. I think we discussed this back when we were reading Titans. He was, when he was first introduced, he was on a Titans team at one point.
Oh sure,
some weird fill in between Titans, Young Justice. Like,
there's a 2-page spread or layout where it sort of puts all the different versions of the teams in panels. I thought it was going backwards through time, but that can't be true because Jeff Johns' Teen Titans comes before the New 52 Teen Titans, so clearly it's not exactly in order, but it's kind of going back in time for the most. The New Teen Titans is there. You turn the page, and of course you get the original 5 with 2 of them grayed out. One because he's dead, that being Roy, and one being Wally, who's obviously doing all the metal things. Yes, indisposed until later.
Well, yeah, because it's not really going backwards through time, but it kind of was. It's like someone messed up.
Yeah, it's kind of like they accidentally swapped 2 of them.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, admittedly, I don't really know much about the third team there. I'm not familiar with that batch.
That was the one that Ray Palmer was on because he got de-aged to teen years.
Sure.
Weird stuff that happened. I think that was post 0 Hour.
Okay. Yeah, so it feels like they've just swapped Jeff Johns, and because it seems like because after those 2 that are swapped around, you got New Teen Titans, and then I assume that this team after New Teen Titans is kind of the later Silver Age, like bigger group. Or Bronze Age, maybe a better term, but
because you have the original Hawk and Dove in there. You got looks like Bumblebee and the redheaded. I think that's Omen.
Yeah, Omen.
Lilith. Yeah. So,
it was like cool.
His art here, just the way that Moore is able to shift to the different kind of art styles of the time. Because, I mean, he even makes the Raven from New 52 look decent, which is real tough because I hated that look.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of... I mean, I read like one issue of that book and ran away for the hills.
Yeah, no, I read way more than I should have. So, but yeah, no, this was a really cool page. And in my physical copy, it got... I don't know. Because of the binding, it kind of messed with the art a little bit. So on this page, which is a big splash in the physical, the closer you get towards the crease, the less you can see.
I shit you not, one of the reasons why I even switched to single issues back when the New 52 started was because I was sick of 2-page spreads having this weird problem in the middle of trades where, because it's good, don't get me wrong, if you got a nice hardcover with a sewn binding, it was solved because it would pop up and present like flat. But in a regular trade, which has got glued binding, you have this gutter that kind of loses a little bit in the middle, and it's
in it just the fact that it covered up most of young Wally West right there.
Oh,
and I was just like, oh man! And then you have to deal with it on the next page where he's grayed out, and I'm just like, is this a meta commentary from somebody, or what's going on? Who's butchering Moore's art? But yeah.
So Dick leaves because Batman's called a meeting. So there's a little bit of synergy between the stories where there's a little bit of continuity between the various ones. So Donna says, "Say hi to Babs for me."
Before the fight starts,
which is neat. They address the fact that some of the more villainous teens are there, including Terra.
Yeah, which I like Deathstroke's team showing up, which was cool.
But the first part of this Titan story ends when there's a crack of lightning. Everyone's like, "Oh, what's that?" And Wally's arrived, and Donna's looking at him, all angry. And obviously, this comes back later. I have to confess something though here. Yeah. Later on, when it's made clear the reason why she's looking at him angry and there's tension because he showed up is because she, of course, was kind of she had a relationship with Roy, and Wally killed Roy in Heroes in Crisis. I have to confess that I have blanked that event from my mind so much that I had no idea why she was pissed at him until they mentioned it.
I forgot why she's bad.
Yeah, I had no idea.
No. I mean, it's pretty clear here, like, because when
because of the art,
it puts them together, and I was like, oh man, Roy's the only one not showing up.
Well, technically, we'll get to that.
Yeah, well, that gets addressed. But yeah, so seeing Wally there, it's pretty cool. But yeah, his art here is fantastic. Like, trying to think of the other Travis Moore stuff I might have seen.
I don't think of him as an artist typically that I'm excited about, but tends to be solid enough in the right context. And here is definitely right context.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
Yeah. The next story is a Green Lantern story called Last Nights, spelled with a K, which is Jeff Lemire with Raphael Albuquerque art. So hell of a team on this. Yeah. And this is
the story too.
Yeah, this is Hal Jordan essentially he just wants to fly on his last night before this big fight, and he flies over the air base, kind of reminisces about the Silver Age and the old times, and he goes to the Valley of the Rainbow Rings, and it's all these rings that have fallen that have not got replacements. All these rings, and Sinestro shows up, who's in yellow, which is notable because of course Sinestro gave up the ultraviolet spectrum just in the last issue or two of the main. Well, it wasn't the main, but it was a Justice League arc, but same difference.
It was the one with Nightwing as a barbarian.
Yeah.
Because they freed him from the.
And Sinestro, it just kind of implies that he wants something to be old times, and Hal's you don't deserve it. But he kind of turns around, he changes his mind. It's never too late for another chance, and I should have. For all people, I should know that. I mean, let's be fair. Yes, Hal, you've done a lot of shady stuff. You've been various evil versions of yourself over the years. So he says the oath. He becomes a Green Lantern once more, and the story ends with them flying off as a pair, to feel hope and no fear, and all the rest of it. So
I really like this. When does Lemire get to be a Green Lantern writer?
Yeah, I know.
Because this was real cool. Because just the way that he name dropped the different characters and how they were handling their last days and stuff, I really liked. And then when we got to the part where it's almost subtle what Sinestro wants, like it took me a second to put together. But Hal immediately picked up on it, which I thought was cool.
This was a nice story that played upon the relationship and felt like it was harkening back to an old time. And if this issue, the whole point of this issue is to kind of have characters be nostalgic before they go into this final fight, it works really well. My only critique, and it feels weird to critique Albuquerque because of course he's great. I don't think his Sinestro head or face is always that good.
I mean, even his Hal is kind of a little bit all over the place.
Yeah. I think it was the first time you see Sinestro, and you turn the page and he's standing there with the yellow suit on. His head just looked kind of weird. That it spoiled the moment a little bit for me because I was like, oh, Sinestro, oh, he looks a bit weird.
Yeah.
So,
But then the other pages, he looks fine. Like the next page over where he's looking down at the yellow ring.
Well, when he says the Green Lantern oath and he's like standing with that, it looks great. So it's not like a consistent problem, but there's definitely some poses and angles where he looks a bit off.
Yeah, definitely not Albuquerque's best work, but still, I think it's good enough here, Yeah,
I mean, it's not a huge complaint, but it is there.
No.
The next story is a Wonder Woman story by Mariko Tamaki with Daniel Sampier on the art. I will say this is one of the ones that left me feeling a bit cold. I wasn't super into this.
It seemed like I don't want to say all over the place, but it was like there's just a lot going on, and the narration doesn't really connect through them. You know, like I understood what the point of the story was, and that that Wonder Woman has to take her weakness and make it a strength, right? Um, but yeah, and just the whole Donna from Another Earth being down in that area, I thought was weird.
Yeah, the weird pit from
Yeah,
Death Metal issue
metal.
1.
Yeah, so it was just kind of disjointed. That's the word that I wanted to use.
It's one of those things where, yeah, so sometimes you'll read like one of these shorts. I mean, sometimes a whole issue, I suppose. But you read one of these shorts, and I just feel the narration just feels like there's a lot to read. I don't feel like it's saying that much, and ultimately, I'm not entirely sure what I gained from this story. She kind of just comes back with the will to fight, but I don't necessarily feel like it made any sort of great point, or I felt like, oh, that was the beat that we're going for, or whatever. It kind of felt like a nothing story. I mean, sure, yeah, you got alternate Donna talking about how her world fell, and you've got her brief interaction with the Riddler, where the Riddler's asking her, that she's
that riddle didn't make any sense. And I get riddles are hard to write, but like, let me go back to it real quick, just because it was.
Oh, please.
What
tell
do you
us
call
the
a
riddle.
creature whose greatest strength is their weakness? Someone who can never win and never lose. Someone who must fight for justice but bring the end of justice. And Diana goes, I give up. A Wonder Woman. Okay, I guess that's a stretch, though.
Yeah, it didn't land for me.
Didn't land.
Yeah,
no. The art, though, Sampier's art, I think, is fantastic.
Yeah, Sampier.
It looks, that battle-worn Donna, just with, you can see the scars on her, and just like she looks weary. And then you go to the next page, and it's Diana remembering, as the events had happened that led her, to becoming this warden.
Matt,
I just think.
Reset your mic for me, will you?
Gotcha.
It's not quite the usual thing, but there was a little bit of something there.
You good?
Yeah, I think so.
You good now? Okay.
Also, move your phone away if your phone's anywhere near your mic.
No, my phone's on the opposite side.
Okay.
Right here.
All right. Okay. Well, yeah. I've done all the troubleshooting I can.
Yes, we're good.
So
it's probably the computer, because this computer is on its legs, I'm pretty sure. So maybe I'll try it from my laptop next week. We'll see how that goes.
So,
but anyway,
I have nothing super positive to say about the Wonder Woman story. It just kind of felt like filler to me. Alternatively, the next story is a Green Arrow and Black Canary story, which I felt like was directly kind of winking at Deceased a little bit here, where they're sitting, they're in Themyscira, and Dinah's like, oh, I have one regret. I never had an oath. Every time those Green Lanterns, say their oath, I get kind of jealous. And I just had this big smirk in my face because I'm like, Gail Simone's been reading Deceased and enjoying it because she's into this.
And if you know about her and her little fun rivalry with Tom Taylor, then that was definitely a wink and a nod, to him. So I thought that was pretty cool. I did not like the art in this one.
I agree. I was not a fan of the art. Sometimes, like on the second page, like Dinah's like face, her smile is like so wide, it's unnerving.
Yeah, it's very manga-esque, and if that's your thing, cool. It's not mine. And just like some of the, like on the next page over from that one, Ollie kind of looks like a Ken doll in that top corner.
Sure.
Like he's just kind of expressionless, but a smile, and just, but the story I really enjoyed, just them trying to enjoy their last night. And
yeah, because Ollie's regret is that they never really got a proper date with Dinah. They just kind of had this affair immediately, and he tries to take her to the beach. They get attacked by Joker Megs, not just Joker Sharks, Joker Megs.
Joker Megs, right?
It's just a fun little joke, and he has this thing where he tries to give her an oath, basically, and he gets down on one knee as he does it. And she says afterwards, if, the person I love is going to ask me to marry me, I want them to do it when things are happy, and they still want to marry me, and not because I'm the last bit of hope for happiness in a hopeless world. And the gut wrenching reveal at the very end, of course, is that he did have a ring on him, and he was maybe going to actually do it.
Yeah.
Which is actually really, in the context of the whole issue, it's neat that it teases a wedding here because there is obviously something that comes up later.
Right.
But where the story actually goes here is that a character shows up. Now, admittedly, I hate the name Laurel because of the TV show.
Yeah.
It's made me hate it. But
it is Dinah's mom's name in DC
that's true. No,
continuity.
that is true. It does
So-
come from the comics as well. It's just that
Yeah.
TV show has tainted it. I'm not saying that.
I get it, but see,
Yeah.
to me, just having a Laurel Queen, I mean,
Yeah.
or Laurel Lance Queen. So this character shows up that calls herself Black Arrow, and she's from an Earth that got destroyed.
Yeah, she's their kid from a different
Cartoon.
Earth. And when Oliver says that she has canary eyes, your mother's eyes, she kind of snickers because we find out that on her Earth they were flipped.
Right.
Dinah was a Green Arrow and he was the Black Canary. So we get like a fun panel of them in alternate costumes. But yeah, they sort of like accept this kid of like, oh, we're kind of parents and we're going to be here for this kid who lost her her version of us. So that's kind of nice. And she sort of recites the oath that Oliver just gave her, which is, I am the wall, I am the shield, and I do not run. I see the evil coming towards you, and I do not run. I stand between you and the darkness, and I do not run. So that's the Black Canary oath, apparently.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure Taylor will not use in Future
No.
Deceased. It's like, no, it's a Green Lantern oath, damn it.
Although I will say that if we get to the next issue of Deceased and her thing is I will not run, then then we'll know.
It depends if they've been in cahoots, because I feel like she became a Green Lantern in the first Deceased, so that's been long enough where Gail Simone, just having read that as a fan, will have time to have put this in.
Right.
But there's only like 2 issues of Deceased left, or 1 issue even. So I think he's got time. But I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll.
Oh no, I just mean maybe he knew.
Oh sure, yeah, okay.
So this was in the workings for a little bit. It had to have been. So.
Yeah, this was McGann Hetrick was on the art here.
Yeah.
So so we know who we're insulting. Very similar to the Wonder Woman story. I thought the next story with Aquaman was again just felt like a chore and filler to me.
Yeah, I did not like. I like the art.
The art's pretty. Yeah.
I get the point of it, and at this point, we've gotten Arthur as the ruminating dad a lot.
Oh yeah, the point of this story is that he's saying that his child and his wife is more important to him than everything else, which you could have made that point in 1 page. It takes like 10 and it's just him swimming through the ocean with narration talking about the shadows and the coming of war and blah blah.
Well, and I like the whole metaphor about the blue whale, that she lived and she kept her family line going, and she gave, the ocean took her back, and then through her bones she was able to give back to the ocean. I like all of that.
I will give you that is a coherent thought on that page, but I will say that it takes 7 pages to get to that.
And that's what I was gonna say. I like that in an issue of Aquaman, not in a story that's meant to be like the last, Aquaman story, if you will, right?
Yeah, I just, this is one of these ones where I felt like this was more of like the writer trying to do a poem in the narration, and it just kind of doesn't really have much of a story. This was Christopher Sebula who wrote this, with art by Christopher Mooneyham, and Mooneyham's art is pretty nice. Yes. It looks quite good. Unfortunately, this felt like a chore to read, because it kind of became clear after a few pages that there wasn't going to be much to this. It was just going to be him swimming about thinking and waxing lyrically about things. And that can come off a bit, I don't want to say pretentious, but it definitely felt a little bit that way here. So we kind of seem to be bouncing back and forth, and in true form, we're back to another good one here, which is the Bat Family story, where Batman wants to talk to the team, and he's talking to Barbara to begin with, and he asks her to go assemble the boys, as he puts it. I was expecting Carl Urban and Huey and all that to show up.
I will say that I do appreciate this version of Bruce going to Barbara, as she's kind of the second. Like, we always get, Grayson as the second. But I do like the idea that it is Babs. Like, go, because, and not just because she might be older, but she is different, right? She is the first Bat Lady, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I always kind of like the idea of both of them being the 2 elder kids, like
yeah, but like to me, she's the more responsible one. So he's the one that she's the one that he's gonna task with doing the important things.
Oh, I'm not going to argue with her being more responsible than Dick.
Yeah,
in a
right.
typical
So I like that dynamic here, and she kind of pushes because she's, you know, it's the end of the world, and she's worried about her stuff. You know, her what would she say? Her implant that helps her walk.
Yes.
You know. So
yeah,
I liked all that.
There's an implication here that might be failing, and she could end up back in the wheelchair. I would suspect that might not be something that actually sticks once we reset everything, but we'll see. Right. I mean, because Batman is putting her in the position of being more of Oracle, regardless of the wheelchair. Right. So it'll be interesting to see if they feel the need to actually like impair her in some way, physically. You know, even if it's not full on, she has to be in a wheelchair. Maybe it'll just be a case of, oh, you can't really do flips and kicks anymore. You're kind of grounded to more normal human behavior. But we'll see. We'll see.
But I just like that layer too on top of it, that she's, you know, the end of the world's coming, but also the end of her world, as she, you know what I mean. She's worried about the end of Batgirl. So in this moment, so
she goes to get Tim, who's playing cards with some of the villains, as you do. Jason's flirting with an arms dealer. An
armorer, I would say.
Yeah. Well, she has guns too. She hasn't shown him the guns yet, so I mean, so there was definitely arms. Dick's learned to cook, and you know they kind of flirt a little bit, where he says, "Can I make you a snack?" And she's like, "I thought you were the snack." And so that comes from her, but then he tries to like, okay, I kind of want to have a moment with you. If we might die tomorrow, I want to have like a bit of one-on-one about us. And she gets kind of pissed. She doesn't really want to burden herself with like caring about someone like that right before this battle, right before this, you know, fight to the death. And she doesn't want any emotional bombs, as she puts it. Batman has his meeting with them. Tells them to essentially shape up, you know, leave things behind, and you know, get prepared. Gives him a bit of a pep talk. Honestly, it's probably the most fatherly pep talk he's given in quite some time.
Yeah.
So. But, you know, they're left alone, and Dick and Babs, he tries to, you know, kind of push this, and he wants to talk about them. And Batman pops up and says, look, you have to skip to the end and resolve this dispute that you're having right now, because we don't have time for it. You're just going to have to get to the point. And Dick just turns to her and says, marry me, Barbara. Which, it's one of those things where, in the context of the story, it doesn't necessarily feel like it's built up to. But in the context of the history of the characters, it feels like a really kind of fist pumping, like, yeah, finally, some progress.
I immediately thought of you when I read this.
Yeah, so. But I actually really liked her response, where she says, "Wait, you think that's where we end? Don't you?" Well, yeah, I guess I do. It's like they both agree that they kind of see themselves getting married someday. You know, maybe when they're a bit older and they're, you know, and they're both in their 30s or whatever. I don't know what age they're supposed to be right now. But and Batman just sort of hand waves and says, okay, by the power invested in me by no one, you're married, done, right? And they kind of agreed, okay, we're not really married, but we you know, we'll be married for tonight. And for one night, we'll be a married couple. And then, you know, he even promises to win her back. You know, once this is all over, I'm going to win you back, and it's going to be real at some point.
I love how she's like, if we live through this is annulled. Yeah. You know, it's like, yeah, I like that.
Until I win you back. I was actually surprised to find this was written by Cecil Castellucci to a point, because I liked it so much. Admittedly, I do think Batman's narration that's playing throughout the story is probably the weakest part, and that
it's very stilted.
Yeah, that does remind me of Cecil Castellucci's writing on the Batgirl book. So, I think
also the early characterization of Dick, I thought was a little bit weird, just because it's just, I don't know, he seems very flippant and like, I don't know. There's not a suaveness to him, but maybe you just chalk that up to it's the end of the world. He's talking to the girl that he's got eyes for. I don't know.
Yeah. Mirka Andolfo was the artist on this one.
It was pretty decent. I mean,
they're solid.
For characters kind of standing around and talking, like it looks really good.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, but no, I mean, it was nice. So I don't know. It was a fist pumping moment. It's something if you're a fan of the Dick Babs relationship, and you're sort of rooting for the hits in some way, you know. And Dick said, you know, refers to her, you know, from the moment I met you, I knew you were my other half. You know, it's kind of sweet. Kind of throwing Corey under the bus a little bit, but that's
I mean, there's gonna be those people that
Yeah.
like dick fire. There's other people that love,
Yeah, no one wants their dick to be on fire, so right away, it's a bad idea.
I love when they bring up their relationship. To me, it's like in the what was it, the DCU book, the YOU version, where she goes off to Key West. He comes to visit, and like they're just mature people. She's like, I'll always have feelings for you, but we've kind of grown past them. And it was just that's how I like their relationship.
Yeah, and we break the trend here because we've been sort of like good story, bad story, good story, bad story. So that was a good one. So I was expecting a bad one next, but luckily it was the Mark Waid Superman story. So
feels so good, right?
Trend broken, and it's one of these things. So he's got the long hair because and this is his metal hair from the metal story,
right? And his dark side hand.
And because John's came back from the future, in a time sphere or whatever, he's got a part of it. He's made a little time travel device because he's trying to like fix all these things on this night before Doomsday. No. Forgive the use of the word Doomsday. I don't mean Doomsday. Just Doomsday in the general sense. So he goes back in time once just for this 1 hour to try and save a few more people and solve a few more problems. And he does it a third time, and he just keeps doing it. He keeps doing it, and it's this story of him just trying to, farm in certain places, build a bridge here, save some people there, and eventually we get almost a Superman the movie shot, but it's like tons of Supermen, like all going around the planet. Notably, there's just the faintest S forming in the surface of the Earth, or whatever the planet technically is just now in metal. And it's just talking about the people need hope, they need to believe, and the idea that Superman for once could be everywhere and do everything for an hour and give everyone some hope. And it of course ends with him going back to Lois and John. It's really interesting to see, I mean there's not much, obviously, he doesn't even have a line of dialogue, but it's interesting to hear Waid write Superman talking about his son, because that's something we've never seen before, because, Waid, the last time he wrote Superman, it was long before John Kent existed.
Right, it was, birthright, right? Like...
And Francis Manipul's in the art in this as well, should mention that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's just like there's a confidence and an understanding of what Superman means. Like I think Mark Waid has always understood how important Superman should feel and the ideals of what Superman should represent to the planet. So this just felt like Waid still got it. Like he still knows how to write Superman.
Definitely. There's parts that made me super emotional. Throughout this, because I get to see Superman doing Superman things, and in 2020 I think that's way more like it hits a little bit harder. And just like the shot of him showing up in like this battle crusted metropolis, and Jimmy's just hugging him and Perry's shaking his hand, like that single image, or Kara hugging him, and the next panel over, a guy's gonna jump and he goes to, help him off the ledge. Just there's these little things that we don't see Superman do very much. And I'm glad that Waid took the time in a story like this. Whereas I said like the Aquaman story, like that would have been fine for an issue. This is, I think, the best use of Superman in a story like this, because it's quick. There's not a lot of dialogue, right? It's his actions, not his words for once. And yeah. It's very moving.
It's very moving. It's hard not to be in love with Waid being back on Superman in some form, and hopefully this forbidden door being opened to Mark Waid means that at some point we can get some more Mark Waid on DC books, Superman or otherwise. I'll take just about anything. So then we come back to the conclusion of Together, and everyone's kind of like standing and like waiting for this face off with Donna and Wally. And she just hugs him, and not says she understands. Don't have to say anything. You're always one of us, that kind of thing. And she gives an inspirational speech about how Titans are always together. They do acknowledge, and this is again the continuity. Babs is there with Dick, like he's brought her back, and Cyborg's like rubbing his hair, saying, "You old dog, you." And Starfire says, "I'm happy for both of you." Starfire approves of the wedding.
Yeah. I do love coming into Miss Martian's story. Remember when Robin accidentally yelled Titans tacos? I need the rest of that story. Like I do. I mean, that definitely feels like it comes from like a cartoon story.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if it does. But yeah.
Then of course, Batman with his Black Lantern ring raises Roy from the dead, and Roy appears, and he
still wear that stupid ass hat.
I know he's up to the others, and Wally feels awkward about going over to him, and it's all just told in the art. And Roy just sort of like tips his hat to him to sort of let him know that it's okay.
Right.
And that's basically it. So they write together on the sand, and we get this great final page of all the generations of Titans. And I think what makes this work, and why I think they have chosen the Titans here as the wraparound for this story, is that the Titans, not only because they represent just about every corner of DC, because you have Bat characters, Flash characters, super characters, whatever. I think because DC is so much about legacy, and what us longtime DC fans all love about DC is the idea of legacy, is having not just the legacy of all these legacy characters who come from Batman, Superman, Green Lantern, whatever. It's that Titans themselves now have their own legacy of different Titans generations. So you have this legacy within it's legacyception.
Yeah, no, it is, and it's like this web of you're not really a legacy character until you've spent time in the Titans. So, John's not here, right? But Damian kind of is. So, just that kind of thing. Like, yeah, sure, John might be the future, and he's the future Superman and future state, but he really wasn't a Titan. He's not like
Dick
Grayson. Yeah, at least not yet. He could be down the line or whatever.
I should point out, you said kinda here. I get what you meant by that, but just to clarify, he's not actually literally here in this group because he quit before.
Right.
Yeah.
But he was part of the Titans.
Yes. I'm just before someone corrects in the comments. I'm just
no. I got you. But they do mention him not being here.
They do. Yeah.
So they did put it up. So yeah. But yeah, even Kyle Rayner, who was like one of the famous throughout the 90s, early 2000s legacy characters, because he took over for Hal after, what was that? What was that story? Anyways, was it Emerald Knights? I can't remember.
Emerald Dawn?
But Emerald Dawn, there you go. Emerald Dawn. When he takes over for him and stuff, and, that was always his thing was, where do I fit in the legacy? So it's cool that he's here with the Titans on this last page,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed this Titan story. It's a long time. I mean, Titans are one of my gateways into comics. That was one of the first comics I started picking up. It was that and Superman Batman back in 2004. So just the fact that we get this issue, because this was probably an actual issue's worth of story in this Titans, if I had to count.
I mean, it probably is. I don't know if it would work on its own as a story. It'd probably feel like nothing happens without the context of some of the stories that take place in between.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like it makes the majority of this story. And I like what that means and having hope, because these characters are the future.
As much as I didn't really like the Wonder Woman story, having an alternate Donna in there, plus obviously a lot of Dick focus in the Bat family stuff, it does mean that the Titans' influence kind of sprinkles into the other ones as well, even if it's not everything. So, yeah, I mean, so I didn't like the Aquaman story, I didn't like the Wonder Woman story, but the rest of them all vary from good to great, if not fantastic. Some of them are just touching as longtime DC fans, some of them are just excellent on their own. I mean, the best one, just on a pure craft and working as a standalone thing level, is probably the Superman story.
Yeah.
But moment of the book might be the Marry Me.
I figured you'd say that.
It's just this. This is what it is. But there you go. That's the last stories of the DC universe. Matt, what are you giving the book?
And this is probably my Titans bias showing, but I'm going to give this an 8. I'm going to excuse the 2 stories that I didn't enjoy that much, but the Wonder Woman story had fantastic art in that one, and so did the Aquaman story. And then some of the stories I didn't enjoy that much, at least they had the art. And then the ones that I did enjoy, especially the Travis Moore art, I think is really strong through the Titan story.
I think the point you were trying to make there, but you're kind of dancing around it, is that some of the stories you liked didn't have the best art, but some of the ones you didn't like had good art.
There you go.
That's what you're trying to say.
There you go.
Okay. I'll go 8.5. There's a couple of stories I didn't like in it, but the vast majority of it and the weight of the stuff that I did like was big enough and hit enough that I'm very happy I read this. I wasn't mad that it was 80 pages. I was like, no, you know what? Like 60 of those pages were well worth reading. And at that point, I'm at like, 75-80% of the whole thing. So it's like, yeah, go on.